on.
Okay, meeting called to order at 7:36.
And Dolores, would you like to be a co-host and share the screen, or would you like me to share the agenda on the screen?
You can just share the agenda. I do not do all that technology.
And I put the agenda in the packet, Laura.
Yeah,
that's
thank you very much, because I didn't.
That's what I have on the side screen.
Okay. Here we go. Can you see the screen?
Yes.
Yep.
So I'm just scrolling through it.
Hopefully everyone has looked at the agenda.
Yes.
Okay, there we are.
Okay,
Make a motion, we approve the agenda as presented.
can I get a second?
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
No one opposed and seeing none, motion approved. General public comments. 1 minute per speaker. Greg?
I wanted to know if we were interested as a council making a statement and or a contribution to support the people of Ukraine, or finding out if the city is doing anything, but at a minimum, perhaps even just making a statement of how we are, as a council, are opposed to the war effort and how we stand for democracy and all that good stuff, and that we believe in democracy and that we believe in free, people should have right for self-determination, blah, blah, blah. So that's my question or statement. No, we can't ask questions in this.
No,
Oh, yes.
we can't
Sorry.
respond to
Right.
questions or comments under public comment.
Right.
Any other comments?
I should rephrase it then. I think we should make some type of statement like of that nature. Supporting. the people of
Again,
Ukraine.
we cannot respond to comments.
I know, but since I presented as a question, I rephrased it, so it's a statement.
Laura?
I will make a statement that the city council does have a council file on this topic of the 2022 invasion of Ukraine. And if we wish, we can talk about this item when we get to governing board agenda items proposed.
Thank you, Laura. I'd like to remind everyone that there's the Biden administration has committed to giving everyone free masks. So you can go to any participating drugstore like CVS, Walgreens, and what have you, and just go to the counter or either the pharmacy and request the mask. I think everyone is entitled to 3 masks, and you can go back periodically and get more. The other thing is to remind everyone that the government has also given away the free home test, and you have to register for that online and I can put it in the chat later. I think it's covidtest.gov, and they will send you free home tests. And once you've received that, you can always go back and request more later on. Any other public comments?
Yes, please.
Lizzie?
Yes, good evening, everyone. Since it's not an agenda item, I would like just to give a quick update on the Slow Streets Phase 2 implementation. So as a UNNC liaison, I have been going back and forth with Kevin Akubiyu, our liaison at LADOT, regarding the implementation of the permanent infrastructure of Slow Streets. He was finally able, after much hesitance on his part, he gave me 2 contacts at LADOT who are supervising or managing the implementation of phase 2. He also gave me a list of other neighborhoods in the city of LA that have slow streets. All of this that we could use in the future if needed, to make more noise, if we need to demand that permanent infrastructure is done. However, he also told me that he is recommending Jefferson Park to be the very next, or the one at the top of the list, to have the permanent infrastructure. So I don't want to wake up, so to speak, the other neighborhoods just yet. So they were supposed to meet 2 weeks ago, and they keep rescheduling the meeting with the engineers. But he said this week he will have a timeline. We don't know. I
Time
think
up, Lizzie.
I'm sorry?
Wrap it up real quick. Time, 1
It
minute,
will
time
take
up.
some time, but it should be done, and I will keep you updated. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comments? Seeing none, we'll move to executive committee business. First on the list is the lapel pins for board members. Teresa is presenting.
Thank you, Dolores. So I was talking to Ethan Polk, former board member, a couple of weeks ago, and he gave me his lapel pin. He said that the UNNC used to, I guess during the retreat or at some point, give everybody a lapel pin and a certificate for service. I'm not sure if this, I now understand that it may come from Dunn. I thought it was something that we would fund and that we would provide to new board members. But if it is something that comes from Dunn, since we will be opening up soon and board members will be doing more events and meeting with the public, I think it might be something that we should request from Gibson or Dunn and provide these to our new board members. I have an example of the pen picture if everybody wants to see it, if necessary.
That's it.
Okay. Hold on just a second.
Yeah, nice minutes.
Yeah, yeah. Sorry, they're in the.
Okay, well, when you find it, let us know. We need to
Okay.
move on. I'm trying to keep
Oh, wait
to
a minute,
our
here it is.
schedule, okay?
Oh, who's doing that?
That's
are
the
you doing-
back of it.
Yeah.
Where's
The
the
other
front?
pictures. Right there.
Oh,
Did
That's
you not
nice.
receive this, Dolores?
I do not remember getting one of those.
Yeah,
How
I've
about
never,
you, Laura?
never, 20 years, never. But
I
do you think
have
they
one.
gave them out at the, they might have
give
given them out
away
at Congress.
the Congress of Neighborhoods. So if you attend the Congress of Neighborhoods, you should get one.
Okay,
I attended one years ago. I don't remember that.
okay.
At any rate, discussion and possible action. Do we want to look into this?
Well, what about the people who attended this past fall, Lizzie? Because I did attend the Congress, the Congress of Neighborhoods. It was online, obviously, but do we think it's something that we should provide our board members? Let's just answer that question.
Yes.
Well, we already got T-shirts. Do we want the pin in addition to that?
Yes.
We don't all have T-shirts.
But it's possible to get them, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Laura?
Well, I think the question is, and who would know the answer, Lizzie? Maybe Anne Marie Holman? Does Dunn still have them? And if they have them, why can't we ask for some?
Well, yeah, if they're free, I was thinking more of the line of us having to purchase it. If Dunn is given away free, then yeah, we want everything they got.
Right. Or maybe at this point they're so broke they'd want to sell them, but the real question is, do they exist?
Right. Who wants
Right,
to
so
look into that?
I'll follow up. I mean, I don't want to overstep my bounds if Laura wants to do it, but if not, then I can follow up with Gibson and ask about it.
Yeah, I think
Okay.
it's a person named Anne Marie Holman. She's the kind of communications director at Dunn. And I can get you, I mean, her email's online, but I
There
think
used
that's,
to be a gentleman who would come when there were elections. I can't remember his name, with maybe Box something.
oh,
Bach?
Stephen Bach, but he's
There
not
you
there anymore.
He was the one who came and gave everyone also at the meeting.
Got
But
it.
When he
he's
was
gone.
doing the
He's gone
rounds.
though. He's
Huh?
gone though. He's
He's-
gone.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay,
but
Laura, if you could
others
please send me that
replaced
email,
him.
I will follow up with her.
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Laura. Thank you, Teresa. Next on the agenda, funding requests, part of the new branding initiative. The UNNC Communications Committee requests funding approval for postcards, printing, mailing, projects, etc. Raheem, is Raheem here? Yes. Raheem, you got the floor?
Raheem, do you need to be a co-host?
Raheem.
No, I don't, hello, can I have a moment? Can I have a moment, Madam Vice President? Yeah, I don't have anything to share beyond what's already been shared. And I thought we
is
had
a-
talked about at the general body meeting that this didn't need to come back to the executive committee.
I'm raising my hand.
Laura.
Yeah, we have his funding request in the governing board agenda packet as opposed to this one, but I could download it and share it. We do need to, so I looked both at the clerk's funding requirements and at our actual motion. So it was correct, only I didn't make the motion. In January, the motion was voted unanimously that it would go to outreach, which it did do, to talk about what was in the proposal, and to executive for funding. But more importantly, what the clerk's funding requirements are is that the move of putting something in the budget does not fund the something unless it's strictly administrative, like the PO box, or just really strictly administrative things. PO box, public storage, if we were paying rent. So we do have to vote. If you want to move to the next one, while I gather, unless Greg has it, because Greg, you're the one who had posted it in governing board anyway. There is a funding request for this, and it's broken down properly. I just didn't ever download it. So if Greg has it, or we need to, Greg's muted.
Greg, you're muted.
So somebody needs to post it so we can discuss it, and I can download it if that's what's going to be needed.
Greg, you're muted.
Okay, I'm getting there. Budget.
Yeah, you posted it in governing board. So you got to go backwards. Sorry.
What, for March?
Yeah, the
Right.
March governing board, you had posted it
Governing board,
under budget.
budget.
And then you had a bunch of funding requests. So
Oh,
one of
that's
these,
funding requests.
there it is. See where it says funding request PO? That means postcards.
Okay, can everybody see that?
Yes,
Okay,
there we are. And then he showed there were other stuff in there. God, my grammar is gone. But it was a complete proposal.
everybody good with me just scrolling down like this?
If Raheem can tell us what we're looking at.
Yeah, so.
Let me go back to the top again. So
Sure, thank you, Greg.
to the very top,
Um,
or just, I'll go to the top.
Like kind of right where you were with that grid
Picture?
was. Yeah,
Okay.
there you go. So
Back to the
or sorry,
money.
the previous page, yeah.
This page.
Yeah, there you go. Okay, so this is just a breakdown of how the $4,500 breaks down. Our goal is to print 15,000 units. We would like to use the Everyday Direct Mail service from the post office. They can deliver 14,781 units within our footprint. And then there is some contingency there just in case there's any overages and with either item there, bringing it to around $4,500. And then if you scroll, the next page is the quote from Gotprint for the printing, 6.5 by 9 on their 16-point premium matte paper, full color on both sides. Again, the quantity is 15,000. Yes, that's a total plus the shipping. And then these next pages is just a series of screenshots from the Postal Service's website, just kind of outlining the routes that we chose. We basically chose every single route within our footprint that does not extend outside of our footprint. So there's a couple of routes that ventured off into other neighborhood council areas, and that was kind of like the limiting factor here. And that total number of pieces totals up to that 14,781 pieces. Yeah. And then this is the design that we showed to the outreach committee, whatever that was. That's the front of the postcard. We liked keeping it somewhat abstract, almost like an art piece. We talked a little bit about trying to resemble like a museum piece. We, a few of us kind of talk about how, when we've gone to museums, like we'll come home with a takeaway from the museum, and it might just be like a pretty visual, and that might be what some people get out of this. The added bonus is that our logo is kind of tucked right into the middle of the image there. It's something that you may miss at first, but once you see it, you kind of see it every time you look at it. So definitely a little bit abstract. It doesn't hit you over the head with our new logo, but it's there in a variety of places, or in a variety of ways rather. And the other part of it is that we think that our letters kind of like in different shapes and a lot of different ways represent the diversity that exists all throughout our footprint. So a couple different ways to kind of look at that. And this is the copy that we have landed on. I think the last time that when we showed it at Outreach last, the piece of feedback that we took away was, and Gabby, feel free to jump in if I'm forgetting anything, but the piece of feedback that we took away was around, it was at the end of that second paragraph. We remain dedicated to lifting every voice in our community. We add a line there that says, "Do you feel heard?" Just kind of, again, like getting back to our branding presentation and wanting to lean into the idea that we're an organization that listens and wants people to kind of use us as a sounding board. And so that's what we tweaked. That was the language that we tweaked. Sarah Longhenry is also really helpful with all this. She's a former English teacher. We sent the copy to her to get her feedback. We made a couple of small grammatical tweaks per her suggestion. And then the last thing that's on here that wasn't on at Outreach, at the very bottom there, both in Spanish and in Korean, we have language there directing to Spanish and English speakers, Spanish and Korean speakers, to a page on our website where we'll have the copy of the postcard in those respective languages so that they can engage with it as well. And sorry, the final last thing that wasn't on the postcard at Outreach, at the bottom, our social handles. So our Instagram, our Facebook, and then our email address, which is kind of like our general catch-all email. So that's it.
Thank you, Raheem. Paul?
Yeah, I have, first of all, I like it, if I haven't said that yet. But I have a general question, which is, what percentage of the households in the UNNC footprint does the 15,000 represent? Do we know?
I don't know percentage, but I can tell you just from like selecting all the individual mail routes that go through our footprint, there are probably only like at most like 4 mail routes that were left off. So I don't know how that equals. I don't know how that totals up to 14,000 or almost 15,000 households. but according to the Postal Service, it does.
Laura?
Thanks.
Yes, thank you. I have a couple of questions. One would be, Raheem, if we printed more postcards, because remember, we also talked about we wanted them to hand out, how much additional funds if we, I don't know, printed 16,000 instead of 15,000, I'm just making up a number. But once we hit those numbers, is it incrementally a lot more expensive, or would we be able to do that?
Well, at that level, Got Print doesn't have like incremental amounts. Like they have like, you can go from 10,000 up to 15,000. I think the next one might be like 20,000.
Oh.
There's no in between on their drop down menus. I mean, I could get in touch with them and see, directly and see what that would break down to. But yeah, so I don't
Yeah,
know.
because if we're going to start doing events, outreach events, we'll want, I think we want this at that too. How, I have some money and payment questions. So I know how we pay the printer, we pay it with a credit card. I'm not remembering, and maybe Paul or Greg remember, is it $1,000 cap for us without getting permission from Dunn, or is it a little higher? I mean, our credit card is capped at something, right? Do either of you remember? Well, I think we have to get permission for that, but more important, but it's not going to be a problem. I think we can easily. So just the funding finesses. We can't split payments. Maybe we can split the printing payment from the post office payment, but we can't make two different payments to the printer. We have to have a single payment. So we may need to get a permission from, weirdly enough, it's from Dunn, not the clerk, to up the amount in the credit card. But how do we pay on the postal side? Is that, because you showed us each route has a cost, but will the post office or the Everything Direct, which I think is part of the post office, give us a single bill, and will they bill us in advance? Do we need a check? I mean, how is that?
Yeah, so I mean, I'm not sure about, I'm pretty sure it's a credit card, because when you go on the site, you can choose like multiple routes and basically like add them all to your cart and then check out all at once with all your routes selected. So that's all one order, and then they tell you how many pieces you have to drop off at which post offices. So that's all one, that could all be one order.
So we need to figure out, literally need to figure out with a combination of Dunn and the city clerk, how we make that payment in advance of knowing the exact dollar. Meaning, in other words, if the clerk will up either Paul or my credit card to the amount needed for that payment, because it's way beyond what we're able to do. I mean, it's going to be okay, but we need to kind of, how do we know for sure what the amount is? And then will they hold the order for a certain amount of time so the credit card can be boosted? And I know you probably are thinking, this is boring, I don't need to know it, but we do need to figure out how to pay for it.
Yep,
So
I was not thinking this is boring, but thank you.
Well, you know what I mean. It's so.
And we can figure that out afterwards, right? We don't need to do
Well,
this.
after the board votes, but maybe we should know in advance of the vote so we can be poised to move. Because I don't know if it takes 3 days or 3 weeks to get an approval on upping the credit card limits. Because we've never had to do it in my watch.
What are you proposing?
It's sort of a moot though, because whether we vote for this, we have to vote for this now. So we're still going to have to figure out how to do it afterwards. We're not
Correct.
going to be able to figure out how to do it in advance of the vote at this point in time. So
Okay.
let's just call the vote. Well, after we have all the questions answered.
Okay, all right, Teresa?
Thank you, Dolores. Raheem, I noticed, I'm glad to see that you added the social media handles on the bottom, but you did not put Twitter. I like the format of having things in an odd number. It has a better feel to it, but why did you not put Twitter on that?
I think we texted about this, but Twitter isn't something that we actively post on. It's not a platform that we actively post on. I think our MailChimp is connected like on the back end of Twitter. And so like every time that Laura sends an e-blast, there's like a tweet that goes out and then links to that. So
But
that's
let me,
why.
I saw some, thanks, Raheem. I saw some data that showed that more affluent and educated people use Twitter. So I just think maybe that's something in the future we should think about. And then lastly, I'd like to, for you to, if you can, and I know it's going to be difficult, but explain to me what success looks like with this mailing. I mean, I know KPIs, but how are you measuring success with this campaign?
Yeah, I appreciate that question. I think so. I mean, the thing that I've been kind of hyper aware about, or at least aware about over my time on the board, is like the number of people that we have signed up on our e-blast list, right? And that number has like kind of hovered around the same number for a while. And so, so we're directing people on to this card to our website. You'll see later, we have an agenda item for a website refresh where, there's going to be a big push on our new homepage/landing page, like asking people to sign up for our e-blast. So I think that's one metric. The other metrics may be less tangible, but I think like the idea here is that this is going to roll out at the same time as we have other initiatives happening, and so this is going to work in tandem with a bunch of other things that boosting our awareness. We don't have the wherewithal to kind of do like polling around the neighborhood. But I mean, I think we'll see it. Like if we get more people showing up at this meeting or at the general body meeting, or at our committee meeting, I think we'll be able to kind of hopefully one day point back to this massive effort that we're undertaking to boost awareness. I'm also perhaps naively operating from the position that more people would be involved with us as a neighborhood council if they knew about all the things we had going on. So I really think that it is like an educational thing, which this I think begins to kind of crack away at. So yeah, I think like the big tangible thing will be that email sign up list, and then again, everything else is a little bit less tangible, but we'll see it. We'll see it in the attendance at our meetings, at our events, in our committees.
Thank you, Raheem. Lizzie?
Hi, Raheem. I
Hey,
was
Lizzie.
wondering, do you remember the routes that you left off? In general, where they are?
Yeah, I can go back on there tonight or tomorrow and take some screenshots. I remember one of them. So they're at the edges of our footprint. One of them was like at the north because it went up into like the Pico neighborhood council area. The other one was at the south, like the southwestern tip, because it went down into whatever neighborhood council that is. And I think a third one was at back up north, the north, what is that, eastern area, where our footprint is kind of weird up there, right? It juts in, and there was one route that again like jutted out of that northeastern corner. But if you're really curious, I can definitely go back on the EDDM site and maybe screenshot those specific routes.
Because we never discussed it in outreach about where exactly to send them. But I remember we're always weary of the fact that around around the footprint, that's where usually people don't know about us. So for example, even I had no real awareness that our footprint extends even beyond the train line. So there's Exposition Place, and that's where the UNNC footprint ends. So I was just I would like those, and that's why we also started the banners, placing the banners around the boundaries of the footprint. So I think those are probably key areas to consider for this type of outreach, just because they're so far out. So that would be one thing. And another thing is I'll get in touch with Gabby offline for I have a couple of recommendations for the Spanish byline.
Okay. All right,
Okay,
cool.
that's it. Mhm.
Thank you, Lizzie. And yeah, so I mean, I agree that I wish that we could like blanket our entire footprint. But to me, like the idea of like sending these to neighbors who aren't necessarily within our footprint was enough of a barrier to kind of not do that. But to Laura's question earlier, if we get additional funding to print additional ones, and somebody wants to volunteer to walk around with these and these left out routes, that's another option.
Okay.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Lizzie. I have a quick question, Raheem. I thought that we had like 80,000 people in our footprint.
So this is house. I mean, again, I don't know. I can't get into the details of how the Postal Service tallies up people. This is households.
Uh-huh,
So I mean, that might be. I think that's probably a big part of that gap in the number.
uh-huh.
15 or almost 50,000 households maybe equals 80,000 people.
Households as opposed to actual people.
Right. Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Teresa. And then we're going to call for the question.
I just want to make sure I understand what's happening here. Even though Lizzie said that we need to try to reach out the people on the boundaries, you are not doing that with this mailing. You are only doing the 15,000 and the identified routes that you have in your presentation. Is that correct?
Well, because there's no way to include the people at the edges of our boundary without sending these to people who
No.
live in other
No,
council
I
districts.
understand that. I just want to make
Yeah.
sure that outreach is not going to be expecting you to come back and say, wait a minute, we talked to you about wanting this. In this process right now, you are only doing a mailing, and we are going to approve you to do a mailing in the routes that are in your presentation that Greg just showed us. That's correct. That's what you're asking, and that's what we're agreeing to. Well, not the funding part yet, but that's what we're not saying go back to outreach to get these additional routes. Is that correct? Raheem?
I appreciate the clarification. Okay, it's for me. Yeah, I appreciate the clarification. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, this is how it will be.
Thank you.
Thank you, Teresa. Laura, this
Well,
is the
Greg
last
had
one,
his
and
hand-
then we're moving on.
I'm sorry, Greg had his hand up all this time quietly.
I didn't see Greg's hand up.
Because he has a
Sorry.
little brown hand instead of a
This is
yellow
brown.
hand. I don't know why.
'Cause I'm
I'm
brown.
sorry. I'm sorry. I
brown.
didn't mean to
Representation
overlook you, Greg.
matters.
What-
Representation. See
go
how
ahead.
they, never mind. Okay, no jokes. Um, when we implement this, what is the rollout time frame? Like, will it all go out at once, or will it be like a couple of thousand the first week, the second thousand the second week? Do we know how that works? Was that up to-
I can find out, and I can have an answer by the general body or by the board meeting. I'm not sure. I mean, I know you place the order, and then the Postal Service goes away and figures out when they can implement it. I'm
Okay.
sure it's. I mean, I don't know. Ideally, it's all on the same day, but I don't know. I don't know that there's any control you have over when they do it.
Okay.
But I can
Yeah,
ask that question.
I've actually done it before, so it does take a couple of days. Once you place the order, they'll contact you, confirm the routes, and then they'll send it out. So it should take, once we receive full approval, it should take a couple, maybe like a week or two to get everything out.
Okay.
Okay,
Thank you, Gabby.
and I have a question for Laura pertaining to this process. At our last meeting, I thought it was our understanding that standing committees did not have to come to executive committee for approval. They went directly to the governing board. But now you're saying that we were incorrect in that, Laura? Is that what you said?
No. Well, maybe. Our policy, long before I was on this executive or you were, and I mean, for all the time of UNNC, is that all funding requests go to executive. That is not city policy. That would be UNNC policy. So that's the broad thing, is that we bring funding requests first to executive, then to governing board. In this particular case, I went back and looked at the BACs from January and then again in February. But the January BAC on the motion was that this was to come to executive.
Oh, I see.
Right. So I mean, I went back and just looked at what we had really done, because I was stumbling over myself at this month's governing board. But the other thing is, there were some things stated that if it's already in the budget, we don't need to vote at all. And that is not correct. That now we're back to city policy. What the city funding policy is that if it's in the budget, you still have to vote on individual line items unless it's in the upfront administrative, and that's for things like the room rental.
Reading
I
the
mean,
notes.
it's the upfront administrative stuff. It's not outreach items. It specifically calls outreach out as not available for that process. We have to do it, but it doesn't, we have a policy of coming to executive. We could eliminate that policy. We can change that policy, but the line item voting for funding requests is a city policy.
Okay, I don't want to go into a big, long,
Right.
drawn out conversation. We have.
Well, we have it on this agenda anyway. We can just do it.
That's what I was going to say, Laura.
Right.
Greg, and then I'm calling for the question.
Never mind. It's not, it just drags it out. So never mind. We're good.
Okay, I would entertain a motion to approve this funding request,
I
item
make a
B.
motion, I make a motion that we approve the funding request for the postcards and direct mail in the tune of, what was it, $4,500?
$4,500, yes.
$4,500.
Can
Here's a
we
second.
up, oh, wait, can we up it a little bit just in case we find out that we can print that extra 500 to 1,000 easily to hand out?
The
Can we, like,
request,
make it, can we up it to 48 or 49?
Uh,
I'd just like to know, will that come out of their $6,000?
yep,
Yep.
Well, then maybe we should ask Raheem, because I'm not saying that we shouldn't do it because I think it's a great idea, but we did in a general way, we said $6,000. So I don't want to start, deducting money from his plans.
Yeah, and I think we have all that money earmarked for things. So,
Okay.
yeah, I mean, we
Alright.
can do. I mean, if you guys want another run of these, we can always. It's easy to do another run. We can even do maybe a little bit smaller size, a little bit cheaper.
Fine.
That's easy and pretty quick to do. So.
Did we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, Paul second. Teresa, would you call the roll, please?
Okay, Dolores,
Yes.
Laura,
Yes.
Greg,
yes.
Paul,
Yes.
and Teresa's also yes.
Thank you. Motion carried. Item 4C, branding update, Raheem.
Yeah, and this is something we don't need to spend a whole lot of time on. I sent you guys the updated looks for letterhead and the agenda and something else. The board member application, right? And so, yeah, so I mean, Laura already asked for us to include to widen the margins on the agenda, which I think funny enough is feedback that Gabby had early on that we stepped away from. So we'll go back to that and widen the margins on the agenda. But you guys can either give us feedback now or shoot us an email, and we can. I don't know if this needs to get voted on by the whole board or what, but it's really just like an administrative thing, just updating all of our documents to reflect the new branding.
Oh, and there was a question regarding the vacant seat. UNNC webpage portal. You had a question or something about that?
I had a question about it.
No,
Is there-
no, Dolores, it's just that the applications will be in the website portal.
Oh, okay. Any other discussion on this?
I do have my hand up.
Laura?
Yeah,
Laura?
I don't know that we need to take this to the board for approval. We've already approved it, the branding. I mean, they're just implementing in this case, it's an internal document. I don't know if anybody else agrees with me, but I feel like the internal documents, letterhead, things like that if we're going to start voting on every single piece of paper that they produce, it's going to take a lot of time.
Yeah, and I didn't send this to you guys to be included on the agenda. I just sent it to you guys to see it and give us feedback, and so we can.
Okay, are we done with item C? Any other comments or questions, Teresa?
Thank you. I just want to say that the letterhead, I already mentioned this to Raheem. I'm fine with the letterhead. I know that I had mentioned asking him if they could do the letterhead with the city seal, and he did, and I think it's fine. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Thank you. Moving on to item D, request funding for a possible existing contract adjustment. Proposed website refresh up to $2,500. Raheem, you have the floor.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so, and I'm sorry that we don't have more to show at this time. We've had some conversations with Anne, our current web person, about some broad ideas that we have about refreshing the website, making it more inviting and user-friendly. Since we're gonna have to be doing some updates to update the colors and the logo, we figured we might take that a step further and do a light refresh especially on the homepage. So she came back with a number that she thinks she can do that for about $2,500. She was supposed to get us a full proposal by today. But we'll definitely have that by the board meeting. In addition to that, we'll also have some mock-ups from our graphic designer that will kind of show the look, the refreshed look of the website. So that's what this is.
Can I add
thank
something
you.
real quick?
Yeah, sorry, Gabby, go ahead.
I just wanted to also add that Anne is willing to use some of the hours that she's banked for I think our existing contract. Apparently there's a couple of months where she doesn't use all the hours that have been allocated. So she'll be able to use some of that time to work on the website. So this is also considering that as well.
Thank you, Gabby. Raheem, is this 2,500 coming out of the 6,000 or this in addition to?
That's in addition to.
Okay, Teresa?
Thank you. Besides having to vote on that additional money, I'd also, before it gets to the governing board, I would like to see some preliminary designs before, and I don't know if that means I have to go to communications to see the designs or outreach or back here, but before it gets to governing board, I'd like to see some illustrations or some mock-ups on that.
What, on the refreshing of the website?
Yes, please. 'Cause
Okay,
I
thank
feel I
you.
have some comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Teresa. Paul and then Laura. Paul, you're muted.
I know, I was asking, am I on mute? I was on mute. So my question is, well, one, if we were gonna ask for mock-ups, often there's a cost, tied to that. So I don't know if we can get the chicken before the egg here in this instance, but it's a good idea. But the another question is timeline, like how quickly will it be, Raheem, do you think, for Anne to implement the changes? And from that question, could any of these funds be pushed into the next fiscal year? If the timeline is such that it's going to take 2 months, should we maybe consider requisitioning these monies in from next year's fiscal budget?
Raheem?
Yeah. Thanks, Paul. The first question, the mock-ups are going to be done by our internal graphic designer. So that kind of falls, he's taking that on. Obviously both him and the photographer work well beyond, the money that we've given them, but it's something that he's excited and passionate about. So he's going to do those mock-ups. To your second question about timeline, I think it really comes down to the funding. We've talked to Anne about like a 4-week schedule. So like, we're trying to have this timed out. Obviously, everything is our goal is to have everything lined up to kind of go live at the same time. So when we send the postcards out, the website should be refreshed. So right now we're looking at like a revised timeline of hopefully doing that, having all that live and out sometime in May. But it will all depend on approvals and that. Yeah, and sorry, back to Teresa's question. Hope Paul, that answers your question.
Yes, thanks.
Okay. Yeah, we've talked to Michael, the graphic designer, and he's a little bit busy this week. I know we have our communications committee meeting on Thursday. We're going to try to have a look at some mock-ups by then, but not 100% sure that we'll see them by then. So yeah, I mean, yeah. So Gabby, anything else?
I don't need to see him on Thursday. I won't be able to participate on Thursday, so don't rush.
Okay, because
me.
you said you wanted to see them like at a communications committee meeting or something. So
Right.
that's why I was saying that specifically.
Well, is that the process? Is that what, Raheem, is that what you're saying? If we want, once they're approved in communications, what is the process then? Will you then ask Laura to put it on the agenda to go to governing board, or will you bring it back? Okay, so that's.
No, we're going straight. Yeah, we wouldn't come back here just to show some mock-ups. Like, I mean, my personal feeling is like anything that like a mock-up is something that like a board member should also see, and not just the executive committee. I don't think we should be getting, I don't think there's a need to like break our feedback rounds up and get like 2 different rounds of feedback. I think it's fine to do that all at once, not.
Okay, no, that's fine. So what you're saying to me and everybody on this call is that if we want to see the design and have any comments on that design before it goes to governing board, we need to attend your meeting. And at that meeting is when we will give the designs, and then hopefully you would either say yes or no, or somebody would make a motion, and then from there, it goes directly to governing board. Is that the process?
That's the ideal process. Like I said earlier, though, like we're not 100% sure that we'll have the design by Thursday. So in an
But
ideal
we'll-
world,
I think but we will be open to any feedback, like things that you want to see on the website. Like definitely let us know, send us an email or show up to the committee meeting as well.
Great, thank you.
All right, thank you, Raheem and Gabby. Laura?
Yeah, I think I need to shoot an email to a different clerk funding person, Cheryl Hawes, who does the contracts. Because Raheem, you remember how each year we write out a scope of work and then they create a contract for Ann. So this wasn't in the scope of work, but I think we can do an amendment. But I just, I want to make sure we can pay her, because the last day to do a check request, Greg, if I'm not mistaken, is May 31st, right? Or June 1?
It's in June.
Yeah, so for a check request. So I want to make sure if we're going to pay her this year that we've crossed all those crossed those T's and dotted those I's. So that is why I added the phrase possible contract adjustment, because that would be the ideal route to go, is just sort of supplement the existing contract and add some hours if we can do it that way. But it may be that we're going to be told we have to essentially approve a new short-term contract and scope of work, because it's a fun thing to do with a city. So I will commit to reaching out to Cheryl, and because I have the contract stuff from before. Okay.
Thank you, Laura. Raheem, question. I get where Teresa, oh, I'm sorry. You need to change the color of your hand.
Why would I do that?
Wow.
Why would I do that? See how it
Wow.
matches? See how it matches? Maybe I'll try to move it over there.
The head is not the problem. It's the background. The
Yeah, it's the
background
background.
blends in
I'll
with
move
the
the
head.
door. I'll move the
Okay,
door.
okay,
Put
great. Great.
Okay. All right.
Sorry.
Here's my input. Gabby, I know you mentioned that Ann was willing to use the money that she has. So my question when I saw this request is like, what her regular billing, will she use up all the money in her regular contract for the balance of the year? So that's one question. So we need to see how much additional money she will need. And 2, as a board, if we approve this, then we need to do so knowing that we need to take money from another area, which we do have. We have $5,000 on the event line, so we can move money from the event line to fund this. So if we have it in mind that we are going to sponsor some events, we have $5,000 on that line. But if we're not going to sponsor any events, we can take money from that line, and then we have some miscellaneous funds also.
So
And then-
Greg, in terms of your first question or
Yes.
statement rather, the 2,500, this is the additional money after she uses the banked hours she currently has for the fiscal year.
Oh, she would need this above and beyond.
Right.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. So then if we do this, then the board, before we vote on this, the board I need to show the board the budget, so everyone's clear that what we're not going to do if we do this. I don't want us to just say, yes, let's do this, but not knowing what we're not going to be able to do. Okay.
Okay, thank you, Greg. Maybe I can come up with a compromise. Instead of the executive committee approving this item, now, can we, and I want to also take into consideration what Teresa was requesting, the mock-ups. So can we agree to move this item forward to the governing board for a vote? And at that meeting, the communications committee present the mock-up before we vote on it.
I don't think the mock-up's going to be ready.
It
Because
wouldn't be
Well, I
ready
mean,
for the communications meeting, but it would be ready for, it may be
Yeah.
ready for the governing board meeting.
I think it would be.
no, absolutely. Yeah, that's,
Mhm.
we wouldn't get money approved without showing some sort of mock-up of what it's gonna look like. So yeah, we probably won't, I don't, well, anyway, yeah, we would have it for the governing board.
Teresa?
Will we be able to make comments on it at that time, Raheem, or will, I think Dolores is saying that to kind of bypass communications, come directly to governing board, and I'm wondering if I have some comments or others have comments or would like some changes made, will we have
Yep.
an opportunity to do that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it'll kind of go similar to what we've done in the past. I think we're always like pretty open to feedback and implementing feedback. Like I don't think we've ever showed something that's been like, this is it. You know, like and like kind of held things hostage. We would for sure welcome feedback. And if it makes sense to us, we for sure do it. If we don't agree with it, we'll say so and kind of give our feedback to your feedback. So yeah.
Laura? Thank you, Raheem. Laura?
Yes, thank you. So this is, again, I'm just worried about how to pay for it, sort of not should we pay for it or even do we need it? Because clearly if we're changing our brand, we have to change the brand on the website. There doesn't seem to be a lot of choice in that. But my concern is that if we're still looking at mock-ups on April 7th, we may or may not be able to, I mean, I don't know what the board will vote, may or may not be able to vote to approve the expenditure. And that puts us at a better chance of approving it on May 5. That's really the last minute.
I don't understand.
Would that be really
and-
the last, just saying in terms of a scope of work, a contract, I mean, if all the things turn out that we have to do it the slow way, not the fast way, would Anne be able to start before we do a final approval and finish in enough time so she can get Greg an invoice by the end of May? Because remember last year she got unpaid because she didn't meet the deadline on her invoicing. So it had to carry over, and I don't want her to have to do that for this because it's a big project. So will she be able to move fast if we're unable to approve on April 7th, but getting close? And Greg's raising his hand. But I'm really asking Raheem first and then Greg.
Well, let me just say, we'll cross that bridge if and when we get to
Okay.
it. I think the important thing to remember is that, or to know, is that the website is a living, breathing
Yeah.
thing. So it's not like the postcards where, we print it and that's it forever. Like
Right.
if somebody doesn't like something on the website, we can change it, a million times to infinity. So I mean, I don't think that we have to. Again, I feel like we shouldn't like spin our wheels about this right
Okay.
now. If it fails at the board, we'll kind of figure out how to fix it and bring it back and still stay on time, or we'll revise our timeline. But that's something that Gabby and I will kind of figure out once we get to it.
Well, I think my point is just it's a two-fer. Obviously, it's the design and the content, and then it's how do we pay her? And I really want to pay her timely this time. She works very hard. I hated it last year when she had to wait for a couple months for that, for payment.
Okay, thank you, Laura. Greg?
Laura, the things that you're talking about are operational things. And
Yes.
so we're talking to Ann about making sure we get the invoice in time.
Okay.
And then the conversations that we need to have in funding areas with the city people, that's stuff that we need to do, but I don't think we need to discuss that in detail.
Okay.
That's like operational stuff that we need to
All
do.
right.
Yes, we don't need to, all the board members they don't need to know all those details. They don't care about those
Okay.
details.
Thank you, Greg. So I'd like to call for the question. I would like to entertain a motion to move this item to the governing board for a vote without approving the 2,500. And that at that time, before we vote, on this item at the governing board, that mock-ups would be provided for everyone to look at and comment on. Is that okay, Raheem?
Yep. Gabby, if you're cool with that, I am.
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, can we do instead request or approve the funding with the condition that we provide the mock-ups at the governing board? I don't understand why we're not approving the funding, but saying, well, sorry, I may not have understood. We're approving the funding
Yeah.
at governing board with the mock-ups.
We're moving the funding item for $2,500 to governing board without a recommendation from executive committee. We're moving the
Okay.
money forward so it can be on the agenda. Right?
Okay, so is there a
I mean,
negative?
no, I'm saying,
like,
Dolores, is
impact?
that right?
Yes.
Okay, so there, but there's no like negative, impact from saying the executive committee did not approve it. It's
Yeah, the
more
only,
like-
the impact would be that the motion would need to come from the floor and it doesn't come from executive committee. That's the only impact.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, and the only reason I'm doing this, Gabby, is to take into consideration the request from Teresa for everyone to see the mock-up, and give comments or whatever, and then vote on it.
Okay, thank you for clarifying.
All right, so who's gonna do the motion?
Laura can do that. Laura will move.
Okay,
I've been typing it because I thought Teresa had walked off, but she's back.
I'm back, sorry.
No, that's okay. I don't know, you may have typed it too, but I put move the funding item of $2,500 for a website refresh to the governing board for a vote without approving yet the dollar amount. And mock-ups will be available. Laura moves.
can I get a second?
I'll second.
Teresa seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Seeing no opposition, motion carries. Moving on to item 4E. Possible additional Zoom, and don't leave, Raheem, because I want your input on this. Possible additional Zoom accounts. Should UNNC acquire additional Zoom licenses, and how would UNNC administer those? At our last meeting, this item came up for discussion with regards to getting additional Zoom licenses. We have one, and we're currently using that one, right, Laura?
Yes.
Okay, we're currently using that. And should we get one or two more? Any comments? Oh,
Well, I do have a comment. And Teresa.
Teresa, then Laura.
Thank you, Dolores. Yes, I believe we should have an additional license, or maybe two licenses. I know that currently the president hosts all the meetings. If we have an additional license, not only will that not be required of her, but then chairpersons can now manage their own meetings. I believe there was some support with communications, and maybe Raheem or Greg would like to also comment on this.
Thank you, Teresa. Laura?
Well, I actually have sort of an opposite opinion. What we really need to do, in my opinion, is have additional alternative hosts. So right now we have no alternative hosts. So when I set up a meeting, I can't name somebody else as the host, right? I'm using the I word, but if Zoom is going to be continuous, it won't be I. It'll be somebody else who's president, starting in July. And so we want to kind of move forward a system that works for whoever the president may be. But the problem with having the multiple of things is it's the agendas themselves still have to be centralized. They all have to fit the same format. They all have to have a fact check. So in other words, before I send the agendas in, I have to recheck the Zoom link, the agenda packet link, the link to the, if it's an e-blast, the link to our website. And that would be really difficult for a multitude of people to be doing to make sure we have that consistent, accurate, and with virtual meetings, if there's anything wrong with links, you have to cancel the meeting. That's one of the other nuances of the Brown Act. And I'm just not even sure we're going to still be on Zoom, but I think this requires a little more consideration. But what would be so great is if a couple of people got purchased somehow professional accounts, or maybe that's what we're doing, not buying more government accounts, but just making it easier for people to be the committee chairs to be alternative hosts, so that when I set up a meeting, or whoever the president is, right in the setup, you can name the alternative host right then and there, and then that person can start that meeting and host the meeting, and the president doesn't have to be at all those meetings. So I feel that this is much more complicated than let's have some more licenses. What we had gotten a report from Dunn, our monthly report, where it said they were considering doing charging neighborhood councils next year $200 for each license. But this is even contingent that they get the $500,000 again to renew the enterprise license in May. It expires in May. The one we're using, the Dunn's license. So I don't know that we should be spending a whole heck of a lot of time figuring this out if we're off Zoom in 2 months, which is possible, because even the hybrid meeting might not be Zoom. The new style, if they have it, might not be the Zoom platform, might not be a license at all. I'm not even sure.
Thank you, Laura. Teresa?
It wasn't her turn.
It's Greg's turn.
Sorry, Greg had his hand up before me.
She spoke earlier.
It's the wooden
Let's
door,
go.
Greg.
I know. I don't know what to do about that.
I'm sorry, Greg. Go ahead.
It's okay. I'm not offended. I just think it's funny.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
It's okay. It's okay. Okay. The reason, my understanding was that the reason why we're even proposing that we have additional licenses because we concluded that Ms. Beltran's directive was that only one person could manage that one license.
Correct.
In other words, no one else can use it. So in order to provide the other individuals to have the ability to host meetings, to set them up, we were going to purchase additional licenses so that people could start hosting the meetings. Yes, there are other issues that we have to deal with. One, making sure that the committee chairs know how to use it. We have to conduct training for that purpose. And we have to enforce that. And yes, there's lots of possibilities of us going to Jupiter and Mars and not being on planet Earth. So all those are possibilities, but we still need to plan now with what we have. And right now, we're using Zoom, and we're told we might be in hybrid. So rather than waiting till the last minute in July and then saying no one knows how to do it, I'm thinking that we should get these licenses now and start practicing with it and training people how to use it. Those are my thoughts about it.
Thank you, Greg. Teresa?
Sorry, I meant to lower my hand before, sorry. I would like to hear from Raheem on this, if he has any comments.
Yeah, I mean, this is continues to be a super confusing thing for me. Like, if assigning a host is that easy, I don't know why we just haven't done that prior, because I mean, we've talked about this so many times and that's never come up as the silver bullet solution. So I think what Laura is talking about as far as the agendas and everything else is a whole separate thing that doesn't have anything to do with the Zoom. I think, to Teresa and Greg's point, the idea here is, we have been asking for access to the Zoom account. We got the answer from the city that was interpreted as only one person can have that login. So the solution seems to be, okay, well, let's get more licenses. So I don't know. I'm super confused as to this new solution of just assigning hosts being the thing now, that and I'm just confused why that wasn't a thing before when we've had this conversation the million other times.
The whole point of my putting this on the agenda for discussion was that in the event that Laura was unavailable on vacation or whatever, we have a second person that could host the meetings, like say Raheem, you and Gabby are chairpersons for communications, or Lizzie is chairperson for outreach. One of you could man the second one or the third one, however way we decide to do it, and can open up the meeting. We just
Yeah,
need to
no,
have
and
we just need to have another person and another account, I think. And not only that, it would relieve Laura from having to be at every single committee meeting that we have.
Yeah, and
Raheem,
Dolores,
go ahead.
just to clarify my point, I completely agree that this should be on the agenda. Yeah, I'm not disputing that at all, and I agree with everything you said. It's similar to things that I've said, things that Teresa said, things that Greg has said in the past. I completely agree. I just don't understand like the idea now of not buying licenses, but just assigning hosts to these various meetings. This is the first time that this quick and easy solution, that's the first time that I've heard it. And so that's my point of confusion there.
Laura, and then Teresa, and then we'll have to cut it off because we
We'll have to
still
cut
have
it off.
items on the agenda.
Well, I think the reason it's confusing is because it's confusing. We had a lot of discussions early on in 2020 about having alternative hosts or additional licenses, but in the end, nobody raised their hand. And this is obviously a different world of board members ago. Nobody wanted to be that person or persons. So the question, you're bringing up a lot of different things. That's why it's confusing. What if I get ill? Well, now by moving to the government one, Gibson steps in and he could assign it to somebody else. So that's why it's better to be on the city's one rather than my personal one, I think, in your broad opinion. For one reason, I can't assign alternative hosts unexpectedly. The person, whoever wants to host their own meeting as chair, if they have their own Zoom account and provide that email to UNNC's Zoom host, they can be set as the alternative host right up at the front, when the meeting's being established in Zoom, not at the beginning of a meeting, but 4 days earlier or whenever. But you can't be an alternative host in that manner unless you have your own Zoom account. That's Zoom rules, not city rules. So I'm talking about the mechanics of hosting a meeting that may Dolores be what you're talking about, but I feel like some of the other things are, how do we do live streaming? How do we do this? I mean, and that doesn't have much to do with how many Zoom accounts we have. So am I opposed to having additional Zoom accounts? No, I had proposed it and did a motion to it and the board voted yes on it, but back in 2020. To buy additional 2 accounts. So I think it's a good idea, but I'm realizing 2 years in that it doesn't solve the problem of creating these meetings and getting the links and putting them onto agendas. So if we have to know what the problem is that we're trying to solve. I mean, Greg is saying, and Teresa's saying, so Laura doesn't have to go to all the meetings. Well, Laura's been saying that for a long time. Or didn't necessarily want to go. I mean, I've gotten used to it is the point, but up front, I didn't want to.
Okay, thank you, Laura. Teresa?
I'd like to make a motion that we
Abby.
purchase. Thank you, Dolores. I'd like to make a motion that we purchase one Zoom license, and that's the end of the motion, but I want to add that we're going to use that. We can use it to work out the kinks for YouTube streaming and for all the other things. We can use it officially afterwards, but initially it can just be used to work out the links. I mean, the kinks on moving forward. Also, getting that Zoom code that Laura's talking about for the agenda. You just set it up, you get the code, and it can be emailed to Laura when she sets up the agenda for whatever meeting it is. Also, we can say to people, if you want if you don't want to host your own meeting, Laura can continue, or the president can continue to host the meeting. But if you do, here's a license that you can use. And I know there's question about passwords and stuff like that. But my motion is for the UNNC to purchase an additional Zoom license.
I'm sorry, Teresa, is the motion to purchase a private one or to ask Dunn to give us a second one?
Well,
A private one would allow multiple users.
I'd like to hear from Greg on that. I would like to hear from Greg.
Before we, can we get to Gabby first, Greg?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, I'm
Gabby?
lowering my hand. Teresa just pretty much said everything I wanted to say.
All right, thank you, Gabby. Greg?
Well, I feel that we make it more difficult than it really is. So okay. The proposal, as I understood it, was that we were going to purchase an account. I would assume that would be a private account that we own. Now, if the city can give us another account, that's news to me, because we were told, my understanding was that the city was saying they're not funding it anymore. So for us to go to them and say, give us another one, when they're saying that they're not going to fund it anymore, what's the point of that? So my understanding is that we were going to request a private account, and we were going to use that to train our people. Asking them if we're going to go to the city, it just makes it more confusing. I don't get it.
Oh, okay, but I didn't get that we were talking about getting a private account, because if that was the case, we would have left Laura on her private account. I'm confused.
No, okay, so may I
Greg,
respond?
can I just say the problem with leaving Laura to use the Zoom account is that no one else had access. There's so many things that we could have streamlined since the very beginning, like recurring meetings, for example. We don't need to create new meetings every single time. Like, there's so many advantages to centralizing access and providing access to maybe one or two people that would be in charge of the Zoom. So that was the reason for us pushing to provide access to more than one person to the private Zoom account. That's
see.
sort of where I was, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Laura, and then we will have to vote on the,
Right.
get a second
Well,
on that motion.
I was gonna say, again, we're kind of going in many different directions. The reason we don't use the recurring meeting format is security. Basically, it's that simple. And Gabby, I don't know what government entities, I do know where you work, and they may use the recurring format. It is not recommended by Dunn, and it's not recommended by Zoom, because when you use the same thing over and over and over again, that's what creates security breaches, where people hack into the Zoom meetings. 2 years in, maybe we are not as concerned. I would recommend that we do purchase a private account, because then, well, we can decide how many people have access to it, even though Zoom says you're not supposed to do that, but we could.
Okay.
And I do want to also say, because I'm kind of getting tired of this, I did provide to Raheem and Gabby and Michael the access to my account. So I understand it's my account. We're not using it anymore, but I'm really kind of tired of hearing that no one had access. I gave them the access months and months and months ago.
I don't think anybody said that, Laura.
Gabby just said it.
Oh, okay, fine. All right, thank you.
So thank you.
So we need a second on Teresa's motion to purchase one additional Zoom account.
I'll second it.
Greg second. We've already had discussion on this. Can you call the roll, Teresa?
We can do raise a hand.
You're on mute.
Yeah, sorry, everybody.
Do we want to just
I can call it really quick. Dolores?
Is a BAC required on this?
Well, we have to go to board with this. This will be a vote we're taking to recommend to the board.
Okay, fine.
So do we need to take a vote or not, Laura?
Yeah,
We need to take a vote, but we don't need a BAC at this here.
Okay, cool. So can I just get a raise of hands? Yes.
Yes.
Okay, and no, I don't see an opposition. Okay, motion passed. Thank you, everyone. Next on the agenda, can you raise that?
We need
Okay,
to, Madam Vice President,
what?
do we need to know the price of that for the?
It's $150 a year, Greg.
Yeah, I know how much it is. Do we need to know, have the price when we take that to on the agenda?
Yes, it's $150 a year for a professional license. I don't think we can afford a team license.
I thought it was $199. That screenshot, Greg, that you showed was professional was $199, and that would allow up to 300 participants.
Can we just find out for sure before we go to board?
Yeah, I will send it out
But
again.
the one I'm talking about is the professional one that's for $199.
Up to host up to 300 participants, $199. Yes.
Okay,
Just in case. Okay.
thank you. Did we lose Elizabeth Spinner?
Yes, we did.
See, that's what, never mind. Just my personal opinion. Okay, next on the agenda is UNNC policy and procedures for social media account. Teresa?
Okay,
You're
thank you, Dolores. But the reason why we lost her was maybe we should have done the agenda differently and put her up front, because we know that she's in a different time zone. That maybe we could have done that also.
Those were my comments.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. So my comment, what I want to talk about is the digital communications document that is now in the process of being approved by Dunn. I know Laura sent out an email saying that we did not agree with it, but and I know we filed a CIS or some letter saying that UNNC did not agree with the changes that they were making. But this appears like it's going to pass, and if that's the case, then we will have to follow it. I just have some questions, and if it's better to shorten the time, I can wait until this is officially approved and then have my questions answered. But I'd like to know who the account administrator is. Now, it says here that the account administrator must provide the login and password to the president and the vice president. There are some other questions in here that I would like to know the answers to, and if it's more efficient, we can just wait until it's finally approved. But I'm pretty sure that this version is what's going to be approved. But maybe because of the time, we can wait. Go ahead, Laura. I'm sorry,
So you
Laura.
want to table this item?
Laura, I want to hear what Laura has to say, and then yes, probably Laura.
Yeah,
Okay.
so the community impact statement we filed was a year ago when against a different iteration of the policy. So pretty much what we were saying has been put into the new policy, the new version. So I don't think necessarily we'd be opposed to it at this point. Because at the time they were saying we could only pick one, Facebook or TikTok or Instagram. You couldn't have multiple ones, for example. And also at the time they're saying you can only put information out about meetings. It's like, well, you know, and we were saying, well, how we engage our constituents, our stakeholders, is much broader than telling them we're having a meeting. So I think we would have moved to a support position perhaps at this point, or we don't care anymore. So we were not talking, our community impact statement didn't really address the questions you have.
Okay. So is it possible that I can just submit my questions? And then we can table this, and then some communications. I don't know if outreach is a part of this or not, and I can submit them to the president, communications and outreach, and you guys can answer them, and we can have a discussion at the next meeting.
Okay, we'll table it till our next executive committee meeting.
Okay. Can I get consensus if that's
Yeah, because they're gonna, it's on the communications committee agenda as well.
We have, yeah, we've discussed it at communications before, and we can discuss it if that's the direction we receive from executive.
Okay, I think that's great. It's just that I won't be here on Thursday, so I won't be able to attend that meeting. So Okay, thank you very much.
Next on the agenda is UNNC bylaws revisions. Laura?
Yeah, okay. So, yeah, we should not be so late in the meeting either, but here we are. I am going to share the screen. And I hope everyone, because this is the second bite at this apple. So we have an ad hoc committee that ended up being consisting of Grace, Greg, and myself, because we'd also appointed Dorit and Nancy. And as you know, that unexpectedly, Dorit resigned from the board, and expectedly, we just didn't know when, Nancy also resigned. So the timeline on this, the bylaws revisions is we either get it approved at the April meeting, or we don't get to do it for another 1.5 years or 2 years. So what we wanted to do was fix some problems, but not do a wholesale review of all of the bylaws, which we could then take the next couple of years to do till the next window opens, if that's what anybody wants. So the first section is kind of simple. The Article IV stakeholder, which is on pages 5 and 6 of the full bylaws, it's just that the definitions in red of who a community interest stakeholder is not defined the same way in these two different sections. So we're recommending that we take the second definition, which I'm going to put in yellow now, and ask that we can use it in both places. So the second definition is the one we've used for years and years and years and years. So, so that's recommendation number 1. Recommendation section number 2 relates to absences. So we had confusion in the language where it's after 1 unexcused board member absence, and then after 2 unexcused absences, the board member is invited to meet with the executive committee if the absence is deemed unexcused, blah, blah, blah. What we're trying to revise that paragraph to have more clarity. So the first sentence we want to add, board members may be removed for absenteeism. You make it clear that if you don't attend, you can be removed. After 1 unexcused absence, the vice president will contact the board member, request the reason for the absence. After 2 unexcused absences, the absentee board member is invited at the discretion of the executive committee to meet with the executive committee if the absence was deemed unexcused. So that's the new language. Second paragraph, the current language is a board member can be removed after 3 unexcused absences from regular board meetings, or 3 consecutive absences from a regular board meeting, but that person is going to be, it's very confusing. It has to appear before the board, and a 2/3 vote is required for removal. So we have a number of issues with this. One is we want to change the word regular board meetings. So again, I'm going to highlight the current language is regular to instead duly noticed governing board meetings. And the reason simply is that the city attorney told us that if we have a meeting on any day, a governing board meeting on any day other than a first Thursday of the month, that is not deemed a regular meeting. So board members can miss it with essentially no dings for having missed a meeting. So we wanted to change that to duly noticed governing board meetings, which is right here. And you'll see that we use that phrase that kind of thereafter a lot. So then the next reference to it is 3 consecutive duly noticed board meetings. And then another change that's recommended by the committee, because it's not clear, it says currently it says a 2/3 vote is required for removal. Doesn't define 2/3 of all board members, meaning 2/3 of 23 people, or 2/3 of the people there. So ad hoc committee is recommending 2/3 vote of board members present at the meeting. So, to be specific as to what we mean. And then again, we added the word duly noticed. And we defined any meeting of the board scheduled and duly noticed as per the Brown Act shall constitute a meeting for the purpose of determining attendance. I see a bunch of hands going up. Did you want to talk about this particular
Yes.
item?
I
Okay.
did. If I could ask a question, you have 3 consecutive. So that means somebody could come, then not come, then come, then not come, then come, then not
Correct.
come. So why did you decide to not just say 3 meetings instead of consecutive?
Well, because that's a really good question, because we're blinded by what's already there. And so what's already there is only unexcused and missing consecutive meetings. Am I saying that right? We didn't
Yes.
even consider, so we didn't even think about, I mean, do you want to add something that says no board member shall miss more than 4 meetings in a year?
I don't know, but I know that Dolores brought this up recently because we have board members who come.
Come and go, come and go.
Right. So I don't know. That's why I brought it up. I don't know what the proper thing is. Paul, were you going to comment on this also?
No, I dropped my hand.
Right. I mean, we could add one more sentence that basically says, no, well, the thing is, there's no demand. I mean, we don't have to remove board members for their absences either. You know, we're coming out of COVID, we hope, but people may still get COVID, for example. So,
Okay.
but what do you want? I mean, I think we can set a standard. You know, it is board members are expected to attend meetings and should not miss more than 4 in a calendar year. I mean, I don't know.
Now,
Greg
Greg's
has
hand
his
is up.
hand.
Yeah.
With what is present, I would think that if someone is absent that often, that their reason for being absent would be unexcused.
Right.
But if someone has a legitimate reason for being absent, and they're still trying to do their due diligence to execute their duties, but they're absent that much,
EmpowerLA.org.
then they might voluntarily resign. But what we just stressed here was just the unexcused absence because they don't have a legitimate reason for being absent, and then just being unauthorized absence consecutively.
Okay. All right. Great.
Right.
Thank you.
Okay. I can't really tell. Are there any other hands up? No. Okay. So the next item related to officers of this executive committee. So two things. One, and I'm sorry, I didn't put the old language. The definition of what the signatory does. What we have in the bylaws currently includes that the signatory writes checks. Well, the signatory does not write checks. Neither does the treasurer. The city writes the checks, right? So 10 years ago, when we created signatory, they wrote checks. So I tried to, we talked about this, but I tried to write it just to reflect what the signatory does. And I don't know, Paul, does this feel to you that this is what the signatory does?
Yeah.
So that's all. It was just defining what they really do and making it generic, because I think it's specified Visa cards and it's really just a cards. I mean, in other words, get rid of the language that's incorrect and say what they do. And then we are proposing adding a person number F or letter F, parliamentarian, as an optional. In any given year, the board may elect an additional executive committee member to serve as the parliament, to not just serve as a parliamentarian, but select that person as an officer. I think that language ends up convoluted. This proposal balances the need to have more meetings with the potential issue of having an even number of officers, meaning 6, and that changes quorum for this meeting to 4, from 3 to 4. So, but it provides future boards with the flexibility to choose to do that, to have 6 executive officers, officer level parliamentarian or not, either way. And the proposal would be it's just a choice each year. This does not change the standing rules, which say we need to have a parliamentarian. This just would allow the parliamentarian to be an officer if that's what the board wanted to do. Teresa.
Thank you, Laura. My only problem with having 6 board members, an even number, is if you have a deadlock.
Correct.
So I just.
Well,
wanted to-
that's what I'm saying. We want it, there is a push to add parliamentarian, and there's the concern that you just said. So we just thought to put it flexibly into the bylaws to allow every board to make that decision. So, I don't know, are you opposed to that?
I've been on a board where it was an even number and
Mhm.
it was horrific. We could not get anything passed because it would remain in deadlock for so many items. So I don't know, if everybody's fine with it, I'm fine. I'm just saying that as long as you recognize that could be an outcome and you're fine with it, I'm okay.
Dolores, Paul? Because I know how Greg and I feel, because we're on the ad hoc committee.
We're talking about the quorum for 4.
Well, we're talking about allowing in a given July, when we're selecting officers, to choose to have 6 officers rather than 5, and the 6th one would be the parliamentarian. But they don't have to make the parliamentarian officer. Each board would choose.
I kind of agree with Teresa. You need to have an odd number.
Paul?
I think I agree with Dolores and Teresa. An odd number is better for.
So can I explain that I do have that same feeling, but this is Greg's proposal, and he really would like to have the parliamentarian as an officer. Does that change anybody's mind?
I guess I would want to, I don't really have a good understanding of what's motivating the need to make the parliamentarian an officer.
Well, Greg will explain his point of view. Grace's point of view was a concern, not point of view. Her concern was something different than the even or quorum. It was if the parliamentarian is also a voting member of executive committee, would they be able to properly do their job of having everybody speak the same length of time or something, something like that? Would they be, yeah. But Greg has a different opinion if he would like to share.
Good order, for me, good order and discipline and efficiency is a major concern for this board. And I see that the parliamentarian, the one that will focus on that good order and discipline and protocol, is something that we desperately need. That's the short version of it.
I agree that we need a parliamentarian, especially to keep order after the last couple of meetings that we've had. But when you have that person as an officer, they would be more engaged in the conversation than really keeping track and keeping order, I think. Teresa, I'm sorry.
Okay, I agree with what Dolores just said. I recommend that we remove this. They cannot be a board member. I mean, they cannot be an officer. I recommend that they are not an officer.
Okay, so is the recommendation from executive committee to essentially just remove that section, remove that? I think
what
that sounds.
recommend. Do we need to vote on that?
Not yet. I think we need to quickly go through the rest of this and then see if there's anything else we're voting on to remove or change. Okay, so right now we have our selection of officers. The current language is that these positions shall be filled by consensus or majority vote of the board at the first meeting following elections. And we've discussed this already. We have 2 problems with that. One is that elections of officers is annual, but elections of board members is every 2 years. So our bylaws, we can't, either we change our office to 2-year post, which we wouldn't want to do, or we have to not be saying it's the first meeting following elections. And that also conflicts with way Dunn is now decided that all, regardless of if your election is in as an individual neighborhood council, if your election is in March or June, it doesn't matter. Everyone's being installed on July 1 across the city. So we cannot have the language about first meeting following the elections. And because in my time on this board, probably at least a third of the time, we did not select officers in July. We selected them in August. I just wanted personally to give a little more flexibility. So if these, I recommended that the position shall be filled by consensus or majority vote of the board annually at the beginning of each fiscal year, but no later than August. So we can't drag on forever, but since we have a big pattern of not doing it in July for so many reasons. I mean, Dolores, you'll remember when Denise said, I'm not running until everybody agrees with what I have to say. And so we didn't elect anybody that July, whatever July it was, for example. But this has happened a lot. So is that okay with you guys?
Yes.
Hearing nothing.
We're at 9:10.
I know, I'm trying to. Okay, so last but so not least, we cannot ever experience this methodology of changing our bylaws. This is just the stupidest way of changing the bylaws. So we need to rewrite that section on amendments so that we can do it in a more better way. So the current language says you have to propose a change in public comment of a regular meeting of the board. And then you have to lodge it with the secretary to come back another month. And then another month goes by before you can vote. And you have to do it at a regular meeting and you can't talk about it anywhere else. I mean, it's crazy, crazy, crazy. So what we're recommending, so we're starting there under recommended changes, change the word regular board meeting to, once again, any duly noticed governing board meeting. So if we have a deadline like we did this time, we could have called a special meeting to meet the actual April. The deadline had changed from April 15th to April 1, but I think we're okay. Create more than one way to start the process. One officer could recommend, 3 board members together could recommend. Any 10 general stakeholders can make a written request to the executive committee, along with anyone they may continue to utilize the current process of making a request to general public comment. So give it more ability to make recommended changes. In any case, after such request, then the board shall either convene an existing bylaws committee if we have a standing committee, or at that time appoint an ad hoc bylaws committee, and whichever one the committee is going to make a recommendation to executive. Executive committee places it on the agenda for discussion, possible action, and in turn recommend to the governing board. So that is what we're suggesting as to the process. Last item. Currently it says changes and amendments must pass by a 2/3 vote. At the moment it says of the entire number of the board. So this one's clear. What they're saying here is 2/3 of 23, the number of the board. Should that be kept, or do we move it to 2/3 of those present? So usually bylaws amendments in general terms for organizations, you want to have a lot of people voting, but the question is, do we want to have a lot of people voting?
Yes.
My question is, it says 2/3 of the board, of the entire board. If we have vacancies, is that excluding the vacancies?
Nope. The entire board is the entire board.
So
I mean, it's a high bar. It's a high bar if you have a lot of vacancies.
Right, and we would not be able to take a vote until those vacancies are filled, correct?
Well, no, 2/3 of 23 is 14 or 15.
Right, okay.
Yeah,
Okay,
but you would definitely have to have unanimity of just a little more than a bare quorum. So I suppose the third option would be 2/3 of the entire number of currently filled seats, meaning excluding vacant seats. I don't know.
That makes sense, something like that.
right. Because I do think that it should be the entire board, but I don't want to say the entire board if we have vacant, I mean, there's some legal finagling there. I don't want to get caught off guard. Whoa, we can't have a vote because we have vacant seats. So
What is wrong with 2/3 of the board members that are present at
Well,
the
then-
meeting?
we have 14 people. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Laura.
Well, if you have 13 people present, then 8 people on the board can do a bylaws amendment. You know, in other words, if you just have
2/3
quorum,
and that's 2/3 of quorum.
exactly.
So
It might be 9, whatever 2/3 of 13 is.
Right.
So do we want that few, you know, I mean, that becomes, you know,
I agree. I think we need to have of the board, of the entire board, however, excluding the vacancies or however you phrase that, Laura.
including vacant seats not currently held by board members, something like that. I mean, Dunn can fix that language, but is that what I just did? I'll change it to a different color. What color shall we do? Green.
I don't know, Paul or no, Greg, what do you think about that?
You're muted, Greg.
Being practical with our meetings and our attendance, if the board knows that we are addressing this issue, I think it's just consistent for us to say 2/3 of the people present. Because, you know, if you know, show up to play, participate in the game. If you didn't show up, then we don't hold us up because we're moving forward with it. So you knew we were working on this, you could have shown up. So I think it's just safe for us to say 2/3 of those people present to move forward for whatever business we do.
And Dolores, I think Paul and I are on one page. What do you think, Dolores? It's hard, right?
I first said, you know, of those that are present, but
Yes.
because we do send out the notices and everybody is supposed to read it, but they don't. We all know they don't.
Right.
I don't know. This is hard.
Yeah, well, my thought is that when a board does bylaws amendments, it's affecting people in the future and it's not a funding motion on something that's just right now.
We're losing people. We're losing people.
What?
And how often can we change the bylaws, Laura?
Once every 2 or 3 years, they open windows, they close windows. It's not that often.
Why don't we leave this to the full board to decide? Because this one
Okay.
is,
Yeah, I
That's
like
fine. Okay, yeah, so I'll place it, it'll be options, option A, B, or C.
yeah.
A is 2/3 of those present, B is 2/3 of the entire number of the board, and C would be the compromise. Okay, so that's it. So going back, the only thing that's left, training, 2 things. We just wanted to change the training to be reflective of 2 things. One is that we have a heck of a lot more training that is now required and it keeps growing in number. So we wanted to make sure that all board members must also take any other mandatory city provided training. So we're not listing every single thing and then having to amend the bylaws again. And currently it gives them 4 months or maybe 6 months, and it's not very clear. So we wanted to have clarity. All board members shall complete all required training within 2 months / 60 days of being seated on the board. A board member who has not completed their mandatory trainings or not renewed their ethic training every 2 years shall not be eligible to vote. So again, clarity, no voting if you haven't taken your training.
And
If a
that's-
board member has not completed mandatory trainings provided by the city within 60 days, the board may vote, didn't say shall, to remove that board member.
And they'll be ineligible to vote for funding or on any motions before the board.
Anything, not eligible to vote.
Yeah.
So that's our recommendation. And we did add code of conduct because that's actually now the one that makes much more mandatory. You've got 30 days and you're out on your keister if you haven't done it. So, okay, so we're just back to, are we deleting or not deleting the proposal for parliamentarian? I
Should we
feel the trend is to delete.
Yeah, I don't think they should be a officer.
I don't either.
I don't
Okay.
either.
Okay.
I do.
And although I would love to have it up for discussion at the governing board, it will prolong the conversation and for the governing board.
Yeah, I would really like to just present something that has only that last thing with the 3 options and be done with it. Okay, Greg, are you going to be mad at us if I hit delete here?
No, I'm not gonna be mad. I don't agree, but I'm not gonna be mad.
Okay, I'm not
That's the
deleting
way-
it here because
that's
I'm
the way
going to do a
government
save
works.
as on a new document.
That's the way government works, isn't it?
Okay, well, I'm not deleting it here because this is my only copy of the document, but I will have deleted it for the next version.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Is that it?
That's it.
Okay, thank you, Laura. Let's see. Board
Bye,
member
Paul.
attend, does somebody have,
I have
Oh,
to
yeah.
drop.
Paul?
I'm telling you,
Sorry.
All right.
we gotta move in these meetings.
Look,
Don't take it personally, Dolores. I'm not fussing at you. I'm just saying we. I'm not saying
I
you.
tried to move this along
I'm not
and
saying
then things
you. I'm
get
saying
added after the
we.
agenda has been set.
I'm the 13 item guy, remember? I said we. I'm not
Okay.
fussing at you.
Board member attendance and training update. Everybody has taken the training with the exception of Michael Kimbrough and
That's bias.
Sarah, and Sarah was there was 3, but I forgot that Nancy Cruz had resigned. And Sarah, she took it before the meeting tonight and she was supposed to email me a copy, but I haven't gotten that yet. So it's Michael Kimbrough is left. And with regards,
So Michael's a renewal of all of his trainings, right?
yes.
And
For the-
Lolita is up to date?
He's got everything except
Yeah,
for the
Lolita's good.
anti-bias training.
Lolita's good.
Oh, Lolita is good now?
Yes.
Yeah, she
yes.
is.
Okay.
Yeah, she's good. And as far as attendance is concerned, everybody is okay, with the exception, we're right back with Carlos Couric. He's
Oh God, we haven't seen him in
he
a while.
was present in January, then February and March he was absent.
Boy.
Everybody else is okay.
All right.
So if he
So
doesn't,
are you gonna talk to Carlos again?
well,
Well, he's the example Teresa's bringing up. Good, then bad, good, then bad.
yeah, that's
And-
what I
and-
said at the last meeting.
Right.
Yeah,
And he begged you not to kick him off.
yes, he
And
did.
now we're right back where he was before.
All right.
And if people can be in Switzerland or wherever our board members were and attend the meeting, then wherever he is on his travels, he can attend too.
Sarah Lacey was on an architectural dig in Macedonia or something like that. And she came at 3:30 in the morning. So yeah, you're right.
And wasn't Chris in Switzerland or somewhere?
Yes, she was.
So
A
I
little
don't have- I
pushier.
don't have any sympathy, none whatsoever.
Okay.
All right, so next on the agenda is, and I will send Carlos an email. Next is a discussion of Amazing Grace Conservatory.
Yeah,
Laura?
just very quick, unless Greg got an email back from Jackie, I've left her messages, I've talked to Billy. I don't know the new date. I just
Okay.
don't know the new date. So Greg, here's the thing. Obviously, we voted to support this Sharp event, but if they're having it somewhere between June 15 and July 31. It's right when we have trouble funding purchases of things, right? So does it make, are we able to, you, Greg, or me, or both, talk to the clerk's office to find out, first of all, how do neighborhood councils consistently manage to fund July 4th events? Because it's, again, a cusp thing, but they do it. And so how do we fund with current year funds something that might float, or can we not? And if we cannot, should we just make this a $1,000 MPG, since obviously Amazing Grace is a charitable organization, and just be done with it and hope for the best? That's a great question.
Well, I want to respond with a set of questions of my own, or concern, not a question, but concerns. The issue is that I don't want our funds to be tied up if they can't be executed. So if we don't receive a date from them, then at least I would say,
Well, by April 7, we have to know.
By the time we meet again, if we don't receive a date from them, then I think we should seriously consider that we're not going to support this, because we have our own deadlines to meet. And so I just don't want our funds tied up on something that's not going to happen.
No,
So, yeah.
I understand. They
now-
have to make it happen, Greg. They have a grant. It's
Okay.
just that they don't seem to be organized enough to even meet the commitment that they made to you and me, which was they were meeting on
The last
they were
Thursday.
meeting on
Last Thursday.
3rd, right, on March 3rd to pick a date. And they,
Yeah.
And they seem to have not done that.
But that's again, Laura, not again, but those are their issues.
Correct.
And I just want us to support them following our rules. So if we don't have that information, then we need to move on, because as it is right now, the city does not have an active file package in front of them for this. And they need to submit all the requests for the things they needed from CD10 again. But that's not our project. So I agree. I don't want us to get into operating their project.
Okay.
They come with the information, they come with it, then we'll do our.
Okay, Greg, I hear, I'm sorry, I feel this was really popular, that we all wanted to support this particular thing, and we have our various committees and outreach working toward it. We're excited about there being the idea that there is this event. So I'm trying to figure out how to say yes, but it's the technical thing of how do we, assuming that they will have their act together and they'll have a date before April 7, because we do have a 60-day thing anyway. I agree with you,
30.
but no,
30.
6 for events.
Yes, 30. Everything's 30.
Okay, well, that's even better. But the point is, if they're on the cusp where our funds are frozen, we cannot write a check after June 1. We cannot use a credit card after June 15, and we can't start over again until sometime in July. How do we or any other neighborhood council fund events that are early in July or late in June? Because they do. So that's what I'm saying. Our task at the moment is that research task. So we can figure out how to fund it, not how to say no. But I agree with you. They have to start over on the request for CD10. They have to start over on the request for the closure. And that isn't us. We're not doing that. That's not our task, right? That's theirs. So that's my update, that they didn't give us a date yet. So,
But I think that we need to let them know
yes,
that if we don't have a date by a certain date,
correct.
a cutoff for us, then we can't fund them.
I had already told them that, and then they've got an email from me with the dates, our requirements. They have that email.
Okay, so then if you've already notified them of our requirements and the city requirements, there's nothing else that we can do.
Right, until we find out what they're doing.
Right.
And I'll tell them one more time that we need to know the date. I mean, it's that simple, because we can't.
But you already said that. You're going back to what Greg is disagreeing with, is babysitting them.
Okay. Is
I
this,
get what you're trying to do, Laura, but at some point, if we're here to enhance the community, and we give the community projects the information that we need, and we don't have it,
okay,
then they're tying our hands. It's out of our hands.
I know that remember, I know all of that. We are also the entity that encouraged them to do it later because we wanted to be out of the COVID rules. So, you know, I will keep
Okay.
following. I'm just saying, this is an update. That's all this item was an update. And unfortunately, I don't have the date to provide in the update.
Okay, so if you want to follow up again, go ahead.
I will.
All
Thank
right,
you.
thank you. Item J, project updates on Washington Boulevard Tree Project. Who's doing that? Was Elizabeth, right?
It was.
Well, we'll have to table that to the next meeting. She's gone. Item K, upcoming governing board agenda items.
Yeah, I got that. I mean, I don't necessarily have all of them, but I got it.
Okay.
Tell me if and when you can see it. Teresa just raised her hand. I don't know if it was about this.
Yes, it was sort of about this. Because last meeting we were, I know that it was prolonged, but this next meeting, I would prefer not to have the time limits on it, because I really would like to end at 10 o'clock, our next governing board meeting. And if we put the times on it and we end an item soon, then we may have to wait. So I don't want to
I
do
agree.
anything to that. So if we could just do this next one without times, I'd appreciate it.
3 hours.
Oh my God. It went to, what time did we end? I mean, we had to end because we lost quorum. It was.
Well, yeah, we
3:45.
ended at 6 minutes after 10, but that was because people left.
That's because our meetings are so long.
No, it was because we spent 40 minutes talking about the agenda, which I think we're all on the same
Okay.
page. We're not going to let happen again.
Right. Well, I will tell you that Gibson said to me, we're the only neighborhood council he's aware of. Now, obviously, I have no idea how many neighborhood councils he is aware of, but we are the only ones that he's aware of that even have approval of the agenda on our agenda as an item, just so you know. And it's like, okay, whatever, but that's not really what happened. I mean, we just need to realize.
Well, maybe we shouldn't have that on there anymore. I mean, I don't know. Is that just the protocol we have here at UNNC?
I guess. Well, that's what he was saying, but I think I'd rather get a little more information from other people because I don't necessarily know. Anyway, just so for the agenda, we have the bylaws. We have
Okay.
the Murphy oil drilling case. I feel that's going to happen. That's going to take 45 minutes. I have a big question about it for you guys. The case was initiated at city planning by an advocacy group who filed, has been documenting many violations, or what they call violations that may or may not be full violations, but documenting violations and putting in a complaint to the city. We did allow them to do a 10-minute PowerPoint presentation at the beginning of our process of looking at this case. And the chair, John, and the oil drilling subcommittee co-chairs, Stephen Peckman and Chris Carlson, have specifically decided not to let them do an opposition presentation at our meeting tomorrow night. But my question is, are we going to let them do an opposition presentation? So in addition to the applicant's presentation, and in addition to whatever the committee presents from whatever happens tomorrow night, should we or should we not allow that additional 5 to 10 minutes of opposition presentation?
If we're going to allow them, then we need to cut this 45 minutes down to 30 minutes
Or less.
or less.
Well, I
Thank you, Paul.
don't know. Okay, I can go either way because much of what the other side is doing is essentially building a case to remove oil drilling from urban areas, which is not specifically what the planning and land use case is about. So I can
But
go either way, but
Did they not go to our planning and zoning Murphy Oil Drilling Committee and present their side?
they did.
So
That's what I'm saying. They have already, that's correct. So that's why I'm asking you guys, do we need to allow them time to present? Or do they just bring as many people as they want to raise their hand and talk in public comments like everybody else?
This is just my opinion. If they have
Mhm.
gone to our committee and presented their case, and our committee is coming to the board with a recommendation, I don't think that we need to give them a second bite at the apple. And besides that, it takes up more time. That's what we have
Right.
our committee for, is to give the full board a recommendation.
Okay,
But
this is
if
what I'm
that's the case,
asking you.
Then why are we letting the drilling case, why are we letting the drilling people talk for half an hour?
Yep.
With their
Oh,
presentation?
no. The 45 minutes is what I think the discussion will be. No, oh God, no. No, they're doing a presentation. They have the right. They are the applicant. They've got millions of dollars on the line. They have absolutely the right. Paul, oh, sorry, Dolores. Paul's raising his hand.
Who goes first?
It was still Paul, but I'm not supposed to be calling on you. Dolores is.
Okay,
Oh,
well, thanks, both of you. And so, I don't understand why it needs to be this long, honestly. I mean, if someone's gonna present a recommendation to us from the subcommittee, great. They should be able to sum up their points in 5 minutes. Maybe you have a counterpoint by the drilling folks, 5 minutes, then you allow maybe 10 minutes for a Q&A. I mean, it really, and
Okay.
we should be reading these materials in advance of the meeting. And if, we don't, then bad on us. And if you haven't read it and you feel like you don't know enough to be able to vote, then don't vote, abstain.
It's 20 minutes, not 20, 30 minutes, 20 minutes.
All right,
That's
I'm
all.
not putting, per Teresa, I'm not putting any time on the agenda.
wait, I think I'm confused. I thought the opposition was that group that wants to shut down
Yeah,
the oil,
bring,
and then the people that's presenting is the oil people, not
okay, the
our
oil,
committee people.
okay, the presentation has to come, it's like any land use case. The applicant for the land use case does a presentation. We've had multiple conversations with them, kind of in one ear and out the other, that they need to have an organized, cohesive, single PowerPoint presentation that will be completed in 5 minutes. They can have 10 minutes tomorrow night as practice, but it has to be changed to 5 minutes. We've had this conversation. It seems to be going in one ear and out the other, but that's a different story. That's the
whose ear?
normal thing.
Okay, I
And
was
then the
totally-
planning committee presents its recommendation and why they made the recommendation.
Oh, okay, then I take back what I said. I was confused. Okay,
Right,
I take
and
it
then we
back.
have to allow public comment. The motion is made by planning and zoning, but it
Right.
must be seconded by someone who's not John, or in this case, Chris or Laura, because we'll all be representing the planning committee. So P and Z makes the motion, John, and then someone in the audience must second it, or else it dies. And then there'll be a different motion if that one dies. And then there's discussion, which in our standing rules is every board member can speak twice, not more than twice, but they have the right to speak twice. So you can just sort of start adding up the numbers just that way. So, but I'm just giving you a heads up. This is not an in and out item, okay? Whether it's, yes, Teresa.
Also, in the beginning, when we have it open for public comments, people can comment on then. I mean, they might have a lot of people just come in to make comments then, and they each get 1 minute. So if they have 10 minutes.
You mean
they're-
general public comment? No, you're not allowed to use general public comment to comment on
because
an
it's on the
agenda item.
agenda? Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm just saying, both the bylaws and the oil drilling case are not going to be 2 minutes.
Okay,
The next item, I don't remember, my brain is gone. Did we already approve writing a letter objecting to the demolition of the bungalow court? If we didn't, I'll look at the agenda. If we didn't, this is
I
on.
thought
the
we
agenda.
had voted to do that.
I thought we had to, but then it's like, what did we? Okay, we have two and maybe three. I want to ask Teresa. Proposed community impact statements. One is, well, you can see them. One's about zero emission buildings, and the other is about a request to add funds for the emergency management department to create neighborhood resiliency plans about to be determined. Teresa, did you want to have, coming from the tree liaison, also a potential CIS about the whatever it was you said with urban forestry?
Yes, I do, but I don't want to try to delay this anymore, and that can come later because the budget is
Okay.
ongoing, right? So that's no big deal.
Okay, the next item is what Teresa has on this agenda, a tree canopy update. And the reason I'm asking if it's an action item, if it's not, do you want to have the presentation between the 6:30 and 7?
Well, that's what I was going to mention today, if we get to it. And we can do it, doesn't have to be next month. It can be in a couple of
Okay.
months, but you mentioned before that we sometimes bring government officials in before the actual meeting. So
Yeah.
yeah, we can.
That would be a kind of a cool thing to do because it's interesting. We can talk about tree, equity and canopies and all that, but and then we trickle in to get quorum by 7 o'clock.
Okay, then we'll plan that out for a couple of
Okay.
months.
Okay.
And can we put the people that have to speak at the top of the agenda so they won't have to wait so long?
That's what I always try to do. I always try to do that. However, it doesn't always work out.
Right.
We're gonna do it this time. Every guest will go first.
Yeah, because we lose them. Because our meetings are so long. It's
Okay.
embarrassing.
All right. I do try to do that. Then I get pushback. I try
No,
it.
no.
I really do.
Guest
So
first.
clearly, so the bylaws so let me just say, the bylaws can go later. It's just that if we don't get it done, we don't get to do it for 2 years. I wasn't going to put bylaws at the top, but if we don't get it done, we're just out, we've just blown it.
Put the bylaws after the speakers.
Yes. Okay. And then the funding items we already talked about tonight: postcards, website refresh, purchase a Zoom account. And I don't think we have any other funding items, but I've added 2 other things. We just need to say these words: last call for this fiscal year funding requests. Because, we have to announce that on April 7th, because anybody who says, I want $2,000 to feed the poor, whatever it is, they need to come to executive in April, and it has to come back to the governing board at the May meeting for an up or down vote, because we're at the end. So we just need to announce that in whatever manner that's announced. And ditto, and I'll talk to Raheem off thing, we always have to start the discussion on the scope of work to renew the Zumwinkle.com contract, because we have to have that approved in May. Meaning to start the discussion, take it to executive, approve the scope of work for the contract. It's just technical. We'll have to be on the May agenda. So, and then social media, all this stuff, plus the usual MER, treasurer's report, blah, blah, blah.
Okay.
And then Greg, since we're going to have the special meeting on the
29.
29th, will we need to repeat the information at the governing board meeting about what was decided on the budget? Or, are you going to need more than?
No, the 29th is a training, and the 29th, we will either before then or at that time, I can send out a survey.
Right. Well, you keep saying it's a training, but it's the training and budget development, is it not?
No, it's a training so that people can know how to develop a budget, so
Okay.
that they can have the information and they can have templates for providing input for budget development.
Okay. So obviously we're not developing the budget at the April meeting, clearly. But again, it's just sort of a heads up
Are you
from
talking
you
about the
at that
29th?
meeting about what the time frame is, because we need to adopt it clearly also on June.
Are you
second.
talking about the 29th of March, the training on the 29th of March?
Yeah, we're gonna have well, budget development training.
Yes.
Yes,
And then in the first meeting in April, I will give a detailed, part of my brief will be, this is where we're at. Like, this is what we, for like Ann's contract. This is I will stress the amount that's she has left in her account. I will stress to Raheem that they had $6,000. They spent 4,500, whatever amount. There's some also invoice that we're supposed to pay for Mike. So I will give us an update and I will stress the different categories. So yeah, I can give a highlight
right.
of the
Yeah,
budget
the
stuff.
item I'm showing you here is different, and that's okay. We will work with Raheem on this as I do every year. We have to, as a board, approve the scope of work.
Right.
But Raheem needs to develop the scope of work for Ann. So this is different than what you're talking about. There's the amount of money, but there's also the scope of work. So
Yeah, we're talking about two different things.
two different things,
And
exactly.
Okay, so. Okay.
But I'm asking you, how much time do you need on the agenda?
I will take my standard, what do you give me, 15 minutes, 10 minutes? 2
Well,
minutes?
we've been giving you 15.
I'll take 15.
Yeah.
I think
Okay.
everybody should get 15.
Well, then we're there till 1 a.m.
No, we're not. We just say our piece and go about our business.
All right.
But that
Okay.
never happens.
Anyway,
I know.
these are the things for the agenda. Obviously,
All right,
there's
so let's move on.
yeah, there, I don't know if something will come up whereby the April planning and zoning suddenly has an emergency that ends up as another item on this one, but I don't think so. So if everything is okay here, moving on.
Meeting dismissed.
Okay. Committee reports.
Oh, I thought we were done. It's 9:48.
Are we tabling everything for the next meeting? I can close the meeting.
Yeah, but hang on. So, Greg, I know you keep saying training meeting. And that's fine. I'm gonna call it as a,
It's not on the calendar.
hang on, I'm gonna call it as a special meeting of the executive committee. Because if it's just a general training meeting, just like if we have a board retreat, then we have to have quorum of 13. But if I call it a special meeting of executive, we just need us, the quorum of 3 or 4. So don't be surprised when you see it defined as a special meeting of executive, okay?
Well, if you do that, then that's going to make people think that they're not supposed to come.
Well, we
To the
can't,
meeting.
it's not a standing committee. We don't really have
And-
another mechanism.
And our conversation in the last meeting was that we were just going to call it a training.
Yeah, but a training meeting is of the whole board, and then we would need 13 people there.
And then it was
Can y'all
open.
discuss this offline, please?
Okay, that's fine.
No,
Teresa?
I have a question. Thank you, Dolores. If this is training,
Yeah.
does it have to be agendized? I mean, with the Zoom link and all the other stuff, like and posted? Is that what you're saying, Laura?
Well, we're not supposed to have private meetings, and we don't have an,
Private meeting.
yeah,
Greg, how many people do you have right now committed to?
7 or 8.
Okay,
I don't, yeah, about 5, 6. I
Okay.
don't know.
well, we know we can have up to 6 people because we've already heard that from Gibson. We can have up to 6 people without a violation of the Brown Act. So if that means you can, if I can forego attending this and Greg, you and I can meet at a different time, as it keeps it under 6 people or less, then you don't have to agendize. It can just be a training session with the 6 people.
And I don't understand well, the purpose of it is to educate everyone that wants to come.
Mm-hmm.
So to say we're concerned about so many people coming, that's not the point. You want as many people to come as possible. You want the general public to come so that our stakeholders can know about the budget. So however, and from my point of view, however we need to put it on the website or the agenda. Let's do that so that our stakeholders can learn about the
As a
budget.
special
Yeah.
meeting then, a special
Yeah,
meeting.
I
I'll just do a
Okay.
special meeting of executive, learn about the budget. How much fun.
I'm concerned about the way you're phrasing it.
But then if we don't have a quorum, we can't have it, right?
No, if it's a special meeting of executive, just as long as 3 of us are there. Paul's going,
Okay,
Yeah.
fine.
right, that's what I'm trying to say. I'm trying to finesse this just so it's not
Mhm.
illegal. And yes, we could probably do it a different way and probably no one would notice, but no reason not to do it that way, really.
Okay, president's report.
I don't remember anything. It's too
Okay,
late. in the
environmental
evening.
committee. Tree
Laura
canopy.
and I we just went over it. We're gonna schedule somebody in the future to come in
Oh,
before.
Okay,
Governor.
secretary's report.
I mentioned before, I think before you came on, Dolores, I did not complete the minutes because I realized I was so upset at the last meeting that I stopped taking notes, the last few agenda items. So I have to get the recording from Laura to finish that. Sorry.
And she gets to go to London in the meantime, so it'll be after that.
Okay.
You'll be ready next time.
Treasurer's report.
We have the February merge to approve, have the draft of the training posted. I have the example of the budget survey that sent out, and then I have the working budget posted. It's going to be revised between now and April because bills would have been executed. So that's the overview of our budget.
Okay, and Greg,
Mhm.
when you start developing the budget, and again, is
Mhm.
it okay with you if I just make the inquiries? I think
Inquiries
because
on what?
I haven't, I'm speaking a backwards sentence, sorry. I believe we're going to need to get our own annual insurance policy because since we won't be meeting at the council office and we might have several private meeting spaces, we may need to have just more of an annual insurance. And I will, if it's okay with you, I will check in again with a clerk. And I know they're gonna have me go talk to Meriwether, whoever it is that does the insurance.
She's
But we
already,
probably are
she's
gonna
al-
need to add that to our budget.
yeah, she's answered that question, and I will forward you the answer to that question
Okay,
in the notes.
okay then.
Okay, so we had a combined discussion on updates and the training.
Yes,
So,
we did. We're done.
all right, so we talked about everything.
Yep,
Meeting adjourned at 9:53.
cool.
Cool.
Thank you.
Cool
Thank you,
beans.
everybody.
Good night,
Shalom.
everyone.
Rest
Good
well.
night.
All right.
Good night,
Bye.
everybody.
Shalom.
See you guys in a few weeks.
Have fun.
Enjoy yourself, Teresa.
Well, I know I'm gonna see you because we're gonna do that handoff, but I'm like so
Oh, yeah.
jealous. When I was young, I got to travel everywhere and I haven't been anywhere in decades.
Oh.
Say hello
No,
to
but
the queen.
Yeah, no,
She got COVID. I'm not going near her.
right, exactly.
All right.
But you're
bye.
gonna have fun. It's gonna be great.
Yeah, I'm hoping so. I'll try to do planning tomorrow, Laura. But I'm probably won't
Oh,
be on
well,
camera.
well, that'll be real fun.
Yeah, I'll try to do that. But
No,
I
I'm
will-
saying, I'm being jokey. It'll be
Oh,
just real fun, I think. I just
Well-
hope it's not a preview to the government. Well, you know, I'm hoping it goes fine, but I'm a little worried.
Yeah. Well, I won't be saying much. I wanted to tell you, and maybe I can mention to John, I still have been unable to finish taking that planning training. Every time I get to slide 29,
It
I don't know what
stops.
happened. Yes.
No, it's not you personally. I'm
Oh.
hearing that all over town. And then another person turned off the audio and just took the whole training without ever hearing it, and he passed.
Ugh. Well, I don't know.
And
but-
I mean, I don't know what to say. I mean, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, so I don't want anybody to think I'm not taking the training on that, but I tried again and I just don't know what's causing that problem.
You are
so-
not alone. I heard it at Plan Check on Saturday. It was a big deal conversation. It's all across town. Okay,
Okay.
bye. Have fun. If I don't
Bye,
see you.
Lizzie. Okay, thank you.
Goodbye.